Okay, so we're running live. I saw myself live on Facebook right now. Do you see it?
Hold on, let me just have a quick look. Are you on TikTok?
Am I on TikTok? Good question. I'm not too sure if I'm on TikTok.
Oh, did you set it up? No.
I don't think I did. I did
Oh,
set it, but I'm not.
yes, we are on TikTok.
Oh, we are
Like,
on TikTok. Nice.
yes.
Okay, so welcome back to Say It With Love. My name is Fred, and joining me tonight is my co-host, the wonderful Euniz Ng. All right, so tonight we're diving into a topic that I think that a lot of teachers and tutors will relate to, or basically tutors who can kind of relate to what we're sharing at this point in time. And it is none other than our first teaching experiences. So Eunice and I will be sharing our very first experiences about teaching, how we felt and what went well, and of course, the awkward and funny moments we'll never forget in the classroom and even outside.
Yeah, that's right. I'm excited because, this is, teaching is such a personal journey, is a journey of not just teaching others, it's also teaching ourselves, leading by example at the same time, because the students will look at every move that you're going to make in the setting, okay, given if it's whether tuition or as a classroom. Right now, we all start somewhere, right? And then those early days shape the educators we become. And here I am as an educator. Right before this, I was conversing with some of my students. I think that is something very, very precious. So, Fred, let's start with you first. You recently completed your CELTA training. You've also had prior experience tutoring English. So, what was your very, very first lesson like?
Well, I think when I was doing my first lesson, I was preparing my first lesson for days. And I remember at the time I didn't really have experience in teaching or tutoring. I was a new tutor, and because of that, there was this very kind-hearted uh, man who wanted me to tutor his daughter, and he gave me this little gig and asked me to start and ask if I could, start teaching her daughter English, and I agreed to that, of course. And I thought that would be a very good experience. But as soon as the days are drawing near, it's like it feels as though there are a lot of butterflies in my stomach. I was feeling anxious. I was feeling really nervous, particularly because it's my first time doing a tuition gig, and for me, I had experience in coaching, I had experience in counseling and even training, but when it comes to teaching, it's a whole new skill set altogether. Very, very, very different. And as soon as the days are drawing near, I was trying to figure out how to plan my lesson. So I had to Google I had to Google my way through, like Google the steps of how to plan my lessons and to structure my class, my first class with the child. So I decided to just create a very interesting icebreaker game, like two truths and one lie. It was something that a lot of people play, and surprisingly she enjoyed it, and that was how the rapport was built back then. And the rest is history. I enjoyed the lesson right after that, and we both had a great time, not just in the lesson, but also we enjoy talking and conversing in English, and it was a good practice for her as well. And then I realized that it's not about the homework and it's not about the task that we give to the students. I think the most important thing about English language is you build fluency, oral fluency, and also written fluency is the productive skills that matters. Uh, I would say that these two skills are very important in day-to-day living. So that's my style. You know, it's about talking, speaking more. It's about listening and speaking. That's all. That's not all, but that's the most part of picking up a new language, such as
Mhm.
English, for example. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's pretty much an experience for me. I mean, coming from, I could still remember back then, being so nervous, trying to trying to plan a lesson plan and all that, and then I decided, nah, let's just go without it. Let's just do it.
Yeah, that's the very first lesson. Was there something that went wrong, or was there an unexpected moment that made you laugh?
But something that went wrong, not really, not exactly though. What didn't went as expected. What didn't go unexpected was what didn't go as expected was that uh, I I didn't really I didn't really know that things were working for me until I decided to do the try and error method. Um,
Mm.
to be honest, I didn't really plan so much, and then I realized that um, on the contrary, if I plan too much, I tend to lose my focus, especially in my lesson delivery. So, what's more important to me is that we go with the flow, but at the same time have a very clear objective of what we want to deliver in the lesson, and then from
Mm.
there, the important thing about rapport has to be built. That has to be built, followed by your lesson objective. And
Mm.
that was then. And later on, when I went into my Celta journey, that was a totally different ballgame altogether. And that kind of changed the way I think and view about, the word teaching,
Mhm.
and not just teaching, tutoring as well. It's very different from what I used to think tuition was or teaching was. So it kind of changed my perspective, turning it upside down and all that.
So, how was it before and how was it after? Like the very, very prominent difference.
I think before I didn't really have a clear lesson plan. I didn't really know what to expect in a tuition, and the lessons were more or less more of a try and error to me. I'm not too sure about the students, but I learned along the way. I learned what to do, what not to do, what to add on,
Mm-hmm.
and what to take away from the session, so that we can, it's something like a tango with the students. It's like going for a tango, um, knowing what to do at a certain point in time, and knowing what not to do, and when to step back and let the students do as they should. But after Celta, it it actually creates a structure for me. It builds some kind of structure for me such that I know um, what to do when I have a lesson plan and when I have a system to deliver the lesson accordingly. Okay, it must be planned, it must follow a sequence, and from there, that's how we deliver the lesson, and not just professionally but effectively as well. Because for English, it's not just sentence structure, it's not just grammar. There are also skills involved, like reading skills,
Mm.
writing skills, listening skills, and even speaking skills. So these are skill sets that students build in the lesson or during the lesson. So there are ways on how you train students with the kind of system that's in place. So previously, that is something which I didn't really know, but after the CELTA certification and training, it changes, it transforms my perspective altogether.
Oh, okay. Sounds cool. I mean, it's really a huge shift for you, I guess.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, pretty much a big shift. But what about you yourself? What is your experience like? I mean, firsthand experience as a teacher.
now that I'm a teacher in an entrepreneurial school, an international entrepreneurial school, I'm teaching history and social intelligence. Prior to that, I used to run a kindergarten myself, so it's not really my first time teaching, but it is really teaching different age students different skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're asking me about the very first one, I think I was much younger and I was tutoring part time.
Hmm.
That pretty much one to one. There's not so much of management taking in place. I mean, behavioral management. Rather, it was more like one to one, getting to know each other, and then get into getting gauging like how a student would react or how they converse with you and the level they are at to assess their capability and start from there. And usually back then it will start with worksheets, the boring stuff, before I was really trained in a way that I'm trained right now.
Mhm.
To and there's a lot of things to learn as a teacher, right? As you go on, so that was the kind of traditional setting I had for tutoring prior to running my own kindergarten. Then when it came to kindergarten, a lot of behavioral management and because they are young, young children, babies, as young as 2.5 years old up to 6 years old, they are pretty much impulsive because they have not fully developed yet. I mean, in terms of their brain. Therefore, they use the impulsive side of their brain to make decisions, and therefore, you will see them with a lot of mischiefs and things that they explore. Yeah, I mean, despite of all this, I really love their energy because they are always bubbly. They are always exploring. They are always curious. So they are always the high energy lot. So how do you actually match their energy in a classroom? Is that you gotta hype yourself up before you go into a class. So by end of the day, you'll be like, I have no more energy. I just want to go home and sleep. That kind of energy. Yeah, that's up for the younger lot. Now that I am in primary and secondary setting, it is similar but different as well because those are much younger preschool children. Now we're looking at primary students. The very first time going into one, it was like chaotic. I had to literally be on top of my lungs because I do not know how to get their attention. Their voices, their level of energy overpowered mine. And the thing is, for me to get their attention, either it's silence or amplifying my voice. So between these both, the one that works best for them actually is the one silence and a stare. They were like wondering what happened in the room, and I'll be waiting for them to kind of calm down and settle before they like, teacher, you are here. Yeah. And then you will see some of them probably nudging their friends, hey, teachers here, can we kind of settle down? And that is the thing that you could use on primary students. Of course, it doesn't work every time. It has to, you have to kind of see the energy for the day in the particular classroom. It may, you know, it does, because in classroom settings there are more than 20 students. So definitely, there's a variation of people, and then there's a variation of energy. Sometimes one or two will be emotional, or whatnot. Then we need to talk to them in a way to facilitate them and support them in their learning. So before we do that, we actually have to manage the behavior first. As for secondary, they are like the in betweens, which are the years that I'm teaching right now, they are high energy. So, which means they are 13, 14 years old. But when they go up like 15, 16, they start to kind of like lower down their energy, because usually they would do sports, or they would rather be gaming and be responsive or participative in class. And these are the one that actually I find it a bit more challenging for me, the teenagers, because they tend to, you can't be cute with them anymore. You can't be like, uh, have some fun with them anymore. I mean, sometimes they'll be like, chill, this is so cringy. Like, okay, so what do I do? So in a way, the focus is building rapport with them. Talk to them when you have a chance, and get into their world, know what they like, and from there you can actually build better connection with them. But it's usually, it takes so much more time, because they are lower in energy. So perk them up. Yeah, we do body shots. We do something like, we call it body shots, which means that, hey, change the state. Now basically what we do is like, all right, let's guys, everybody looks really sleepy right now. Let's get to the other end of the room and give your five friends a fist bump, and then come back. Things like that. Or walk down the stairs, come back out, and tell me what's on the menu for the day. Yeah, something like that. So to get them moving, get them like, at least perk up a little bit for the to get ready for the class. Yeah. So I mean, with the younger ones, we can sing song, we can dance, we can do weird stuff. But with the older one, I think it has to be like, it depends on the energy again. Yeah. So that is the kind of different age group, and how I had to manage them at the very first time. If you were talking about very first time, the first time I was overwhelmed with the primary students, I was like, what do I do? Like, it's total chaos. And like, I mean, at that point, as a teacher, actually a more experienced teacher, came in to intervene. So I was grateful. She came by, and then she was like, so I heard you have a new teacher, and it seems like you are not listening to your new teacher. And I felt a bit embarrassed. At the same time, I'm like, oh gosh, how am I going to handle this? And week by week, after you build a rapport with the students, and they know you better, things will settle. However, the first few weeks will be rather a time that you might struggle a little bit, because I did, honestly I did, and I felt like maybe I'm not made for this after all. There's a moment that I did think that maybe I'm not made for this after all. um and before I go into those classes that gave me that kind of feeling, I take a deep breath, calm myself down. Everything will be great today. Let's
Yeah,
go.
I know, right? I can relate to that. That's amazing. In fact, I think what you shared was really, really so amazing because, being teachers for the very, very first time, having your very first class and teaching for the first to second week or so,
Mm,
it must have been such a huge, huge learning curve. And I like how you pointed out, like, um, like there were times when you completely felt as though you're the most clueless person on earth, that you are totally like how would I say, you're totally um, unsure, uncertain, or totally lost, right? Like, what should I do? Overwhelmed, and sometimes you're doubting yourself, like, you know, like you do not know if you're made for this.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's exactly how I feel as well. And there were times, yeah, the rapport was there. The rapport with the students were there. You did all you need to do. You do all you have to do. But the thing here is, you do not know from the results that you're getting from the students, you do not know whether you are delivering the lesson well enough, or you do not know if they capture your message well enough, or they learn as they should. So
Mm,
it kind of feels like you are catching air or catching smoke at a point in time, and you do
mm,
not know whether you're doing it right. And sometimes I feel that way, and sometimes I feel incredibly lonely, like nobody understands me at a point in time, or perhaps nobody knows or realize what I'm going through. So
mm,
that can feel kind of lonely, and it creates a moment where I want to withdraw from everybody. So that was how I feel. I don't know if
mm.
other teachers feel that way, but there were times I totally want to shut off from the world and be by myself.
Well,
And
there are definitely moments like that, but then I didn't really show it to the students.
now
I
we
just
don't.
carried on. Yeah, we don't. I mean, in a way, the show must go on, right? It's the same, just like a presentation on stage, and the show must go on. Now, regardless, the students actually take we wouldn't know how much they actually learn until the end of the day, when you actually have some questions for follow-up questions to know to kind of gauge what are their level of understanding after the class, whether the class was effective. It takes a while. It's not something that you're born with and then you go into a classroom automatically, hey, you know what, I'm a great teacher. No, it doesn't work like that.
That
And
doesn't work.
yeah, it doesn't. And there's mishaps sometimes, right? And then, teacher, he hit me. And like, oh, okay, so I gotta stop teaching, and now I have to deal with this first. And I have to be careful so that I uh, I I make sense out of the situation, and then I calm everyone down so that the conflict, whatever, doesn't escalate. I really think after experiencing different age group, I still love teaching the age group that I'm teaching right now, which is the in-betweens. I call them the tweens, which means they are in transition from primary to secondary, the first few years in secondary. um, because they are now exploring their teenage years. Okay, the first point of it. So if we do it right at this point, the rest of the years will be easy for other teachers, as well as it's a renewal from primary mindset, and there's a way to reset things for them. I really enjoy because they do have high energy. At the same time, they're curious. They have lots of questions. They are inquisitive. They are you know um, and they are engaged. Now, engagement is another thing. How do we actually get our students engaged? There's an art to it. There's also a science to it. So that art and science of engagement. After a while, you gauged it, but you wouldn't get it in the first month or second month or third month even.
Interesting, though, you mentioned about engagement.
Mm.
Just wondering, what or how do you define engagement in this sense?
Engagement is actually, do I get the students to be interested in the topic that I talk about? Do I have a curiosity factor? Do I have a wow factor, or like something that I caught them off guard? Sometimes, like what I taught in history today. Is one I ran an ad, a video of an ad, but actually I was teaching. Then they were like, "Teacher, what does this have to do with history? Like this is an ad, like modern day ad, that we can see outside there. What does it have to do?" Okay, let's talk about propaganda today. I'm like, what?
That didn't came as expected.
Yeah, it didn't keep expected, right? So whenever I talk about propaganda, wait, what, an ad? Yeah. So okay, now let me ask you, like, if I start a class about, hey, this is the ad I'm running, and I'm actually teaching history class right now. So what would be the first question you have in mind right now?
Hmm. I'm sorry, but what was the question again?
You zone out, did you? Like one of my students that zone out.
Yeah, so
Um,
you do have ADD.
yeah.
You have ADD, so I tend to be really hyper on one end, and on the other end, I kind of like zone out sometimes. So that's kind of my habit, but I do understand that.
So, do you want to ask the question you have in mind, or do you want me to ask you the question I had for you?
I think you can ask me the questions, and then or maybe I can just ask you some of the
Mm,
questions right now. Um,
sure.
like what was um again? I think you were asking me about something just now. Maybe you can continue that question first, and then I will just ask you after that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, assuming that you're in my history class today. Okay,
Mhm.
assuming that you are,
Okay.
and I mean, history, right? History class is supposed to be boring and it's supposed to be like, let's learn about the past. We start with the past. But right now, I'm running an ad about the latest phone
Hmm.
example, right? So you were like, yeah, what would be the one question you have in mind when I do this? Like, I just, the first thing I went in, okay, everybody, I don't need your book. I don't need your textbook. Keep everything in your bag and just look in front. I'm gonna play this video. The next minute is like, are we in the right class?
Yeah, so it can happen that way, and what I would feel if I'm a student is I would feel puzzled, I would feel a little confused, I would also feel a little bit shocked and astonished at the same time. Um, but it's something to draw their attention, and I think you did it right by drawing their attention to the subject or to that particular topic that you have in mind. That didn't come as expected, especially when it ties in together with propaganda in history lessons. But I can
Yeah.
see where it's going because engagement is about guided discovery.
Yes,
It's about
exactly.
guided discovery. It's to guide the students to discover something in a task. And they're given
Mm,
a task to do. And by giving the task for them to do on their own, they are left to figure it out on their own without your instructions, but by following the instructions of the task. And that is what keeps the engagement going for them. Instead of doing your teacher talk, instead of talking to them on and on and on, where they will just lose focus after that, you give them a task with the instructions there. And when they do the task, and as they are doing the task, they are able to be engaged. And that is also student engagement, another form of student engagement that we constantly do in this day and age. Because believe me, the way that students learn these days is very different from back in the times back in our days, I guess.
right. Yeah. So imagine you have a student like, teacher, can you stop yapping? How would you actually address that?
Exactly. So when they say, "Can you stop yapping?" there must be something not quite right about what you're doing. Either you are doing too much of talking, or you're doing too much of nagging, or you simply have not engaged them enough.
Well, it depends. If you know the personality of your student, some of them actually they kind of like it's just a joke or it's something to get your attention. They would say things like that. Because some of them they really feel like they are being nagged. That's because whenever you tell them the same thing, remind them the same thing again, they feel like, oh, Joe, please, and then some of them will be kind of rude, without them noticing it. So they'll be like, here teacher goes again. So what do you do?
Well, that's tough, and that's the reason why I don't teach kids. and,
Yeah.
and I don't teach certain group of kids. I do teach kids, but I don't teach a certain group of kids. I go for my preference are
Mm.
those somewhere around the age of 16 or 17, close to the age of 18 when they're about to go to the tertiary education, secondary four, secondary fives. So these group of people are the ones that I'm teaching or tutoring as well. So I don't really teach those that are below that certain age or something like that. Maybe 14 is the youngest, but never younger than that, because I may not have or may not be trained for that particular age group. But for you to ask me the questions, I'm afraid I may not have a solution on the spot here.
Do you want
No,
to know what I
not
did?
on it. I'm not gonna embarrass myself.
Do you want to know what I did?
Sure.
Anyone here want to know what I did? Perhaps you want to share. Perhaps what would you do? I mean, I would love to hear from you if you're listening to us or you are here with us. Down in the comment, do write down. I mean, if you have a student that did this hand gestures, like when you're talking, setting they say, "Here you go again, teacher," yapping. Yeah, this is literally what one of my particular student did. He's 13-year-old. So guess what I did? Um, I used I called out his name. I looked at him in the eye. I said, "Look at me. This is what you just did." Teachers yapping. Does it look good on you? Is this respectful? And then he was like for a while, and then there was another student that actually said, "What? That's what teacher are paid to do." One of my other students just said it out loud. I was like, "Thank you. And I get paid for it. Do you?" So he was like, "Yeah." Mm. So it's time for you to focus back to what you should be focusing on. Am I right? Of course, at that time, I mean, because I'm also a social intelligence teacher, I would um, talk about respect, how it is being earned. And does it earn you the respect, or are you respecting others in this context, right? So it would be a lesson on its own. It's a lesson within a lesson. So I wouldn't really just focus on the syllabus itself, the topic itself. Sometimes I do go into connecting why we are teaching this way, why we're talking about certain things. There is always a motivation. But of course, for the students to be convinced about it is really about their belief system too, right? And then when we were talking about mind control, propaganda, then they started thinking, teacher, what you're saying, what you're doing right now is also part of it. Thank you. You got the idea. And then I said, well, I always have encouraged you all to question me, to challenge me, but respectfully. And I'm happy to be able to, converse about you about certain topics. I may not be always right. You can do your own form of research to confirm what is right and what is true to you, right? So yeah, then they will, there were more questions after that. Of course, I have to stop them and I have to continue with my syllabus, and that went. So that is another form of engagement. Is like making it conversational, making it like, there's something that pique their curiosity, something that makes them want to find out more. And then that's when you get their attention. Of course, at some point, too much of information will also get them really sleepy or tired. So they would probably stand up and tell you that, hey, teacher, can I go to toilet? Or then you will see a pattern there. Then you interrupt that pattern by doing something else. Okay, now it's time to get up on your feet and let's do something else.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how I did it. Yeah. So anyway, but this is fun conversation. If I were to continue talking about it, it will be endless.
There are lots of experiences, and I'm sure it just doesn't stop at the first time teaching experience. It goes on and on and on, and sometimes it
Mhm.
feels like it's eternity. Um,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I enjoy it, so I don't think it is. Sometimes I'm like, I don't mind staying back, except that I have a very heavy traffic to go through after that. If I do, to converse with them, sometimes they would stop me to converse with me. But yeah, I would say, hey, you know what? Let's talk about this tomorrow when we have class and so forth. So I mean, I appreciate all this because to me that is like a form of validation for me, or a form of recognition that, hey, teacher, I want your opinion, which means that, hey, they kind of understand that you're the teacher, and they respect you as a teacher, and they want your opinion on certain things. It means that you have won half the battle of building that relationship with them. And following from that, they would be able to open up to you more, and they would be, if they ever have any struggle per se in their learning,
Mm.
they would be opening up to you about, hey, teacher, I really struggle for this part, or I struggle with my focus. Do you have any idea or any suggestion? So I did, one of my students actually asked me this, but unfortunately she has to go back to Japan. So she asked me, teacher, I really cannot focus for too long. What do you suggest me to do? So yeah, I mean, that is something that is very precious to me because it's all about relationships. I believe all teachers and educators agree that there are these perks about being a teacher, despite it's sometimes we do feel it's an underappreciated occupation. Yeah, because as a teacher, who are you? You're almost like the second parent in another setting in school, right?
Yeah, sometimes the nanny or the babysitter.
Yes, the nanny, the babysitter, sometimes the counselor, sometimes the facilitator, sometimes the supporter, anything. And sometimes even as a friend, in certain time. I'm not saying that, I'm not your friend. I know that some educators would agree that we still need to have a form of authority. So yes, when it's time to exercise that authority, you need them to know that, hey, you know what? No matter how kind I am as a teacher, it doesn't mean you can disrespect me. Okay, so that is the sense of authority, so that you can lead them, lead them into wherever you want them to go. I mean, in a way to expose them to the knowledge that they're supposed to have. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
This is such an amazing conversation. I mean, I'm enjoying it, and teaching is such a journey. It's a journey that's full of surprises, and I think there's a lot to share. Not just our first experiences that really shaped us as educators, and of course, any final words for our listeners, Eunice?
um. I yeah, I mean, for if you see us, please give us a thumbs up and follow us on our social media channel. We have our TikTok channel down below, which is for Fred is Learn English with Fred, and for me is A New Teacher's Diary. on TikTok. And also, of course, if you are on our YouTube, it's Fred and Euniz. And of course, we're also on several other platforms, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
Spotify.
Oh,
We're on Spotify. So
Spotify.
if you happen to see us on Spotify, just give us a follow, hit the bell button as well to get updates for our new episodes. And of course, absolutely, thank you so much for tuning in tonight to Say It With Love. And we'll be back next time for more conversations on education and learning, and of course, teaching. So we'll see you very soon. Have a great evening and days ahead. Enjoy your
have a
weekend.
Yeah, have a restful night. Bye bye.